Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Appreciate it as always. Hope you're having a fantastic day. So I want to dig in. I came across this article that I thought was interesting. We're kind of getting into that time of the year in college basketball, a list of the top 5 players in terms of the player of the year. So I just kind of want to run through these 5, a couple of things I think stand out in this list and why the list is wrong. And I'm no, just some couple of tweaks I would make to it. We'll see. We don't know what's going to happen, but there were a couple of things that stood out to me that I thought were kind of interesting in light of everything else we've been hearing about the college basketball season and what these players will do in the WNBA. And they're always comparing them to Caitlin Clark and so on. So we had number 5, Tania Lotson. It is Lotson, correct? Maybe it's Latson. I don't think I've ever actually heard anybody say it. I have seen her play, but not enough. I've had a number of you in the comments mention her, doing a video on her. So I do want to do that actually, since people are interested. If I can dig into some tape, video, whatever you want to call it, film, and break down her game a little more. She's listed 5 here. She's currently the leading scorer in the NCAA right now. So she definitely, I think, belongs on this list. She's scoring almost 28 points a game. I'm going to go through this list, go through some of the numbers for them and some of the other things that factor in, and a couple of changes I think I would make. Number 4, Paige Bueckers. Now, this, of course, is surprising, right? Surprising to all of us when we look at what we've heard from the media ever since, really since Paige entered college, now in her 9th year at UConn. I'm kidding. Her 5th year, but she also has another year of eligibility. So that could be interesting as well. But with everything we've heard about her, it's sort of the way Asia Wilson was going to get the MVP before the season started. Everyone knew that. It was anointed. She was appointed. It was hers to lose, and she would have to have a disastrous season to lose it. And we've kind of gotten the same thing with Paige Bueckers and the number 1 pick. And I talked about in another video, I won't go into the whole thing, but I said how she has a lock on it now, because I don't think Dallas will risk being wrong. It's the safe pick, right? If the Dallas Wings select Paige Bueckers and it doesn't work out, or she has a good year, a good career, not a great career, no one's going to trash the Dallas team, the Wings, for that selection. But if they don't pick Paige Bueckers and Paige has a better career than whomever it is they pick, then they're going to hear it. And that can happen even in just the rookie years of the year 2. So you're talking about people and their livelihoods and their employment, right? Paige Bueckers is a safe choice. So if she can get through the season uninjured, I was almost said unhealthy, healthy, but and uninjured, she'll probably be the number 1 pick. But interestingly enough, only number 4 on this list. And she's having a solid year. And number 3, Lauren Betts, 6'7" center for UCLA. By the way, UCLA, for those of you who don't know or don't remember, beat South Carolina earlier in this year. She talked about how UCLA wasn't getting a whole lot of respect. And now here they are, they're first in the country. They gave South Carolina and Dawn Staley their only loss. Betts has been phenomenal on the inside. She is a legit double-double player. And what I mean by that is we're talking 20 points, 10 rebounds, while shooting phenomenally from the floor. 61.5%. That's what you want your center shooting. That's what you want your center shooting when they're playing a post-up game, 20 points and 10. And of course, number 2, Juju Watkins. I don't think that is a surprise to anyone. Juju, interestingly, it's really interesting because, and it's I hate tying this to Caitlin Clark, but it is partly the Caitlin Clark effect. I think there are a lot more eyes still on college now because you're getting this whole thing about, okay, Caitlin Clark is changing the game. Now we need more players like that bring that it factor, that bring that entertainment value to the game that hadn't been there. Who is next? And so because of that, you've seen a lot of attention to players like Juju and Paige, and yet because of that attention, we're discovering other players and saying, well, wait, hold on. Maybe it's not Juju Watkins. Maybe it's not Paige Bueckers. Not that it won't be, not that they won't be a part of it, but I'm saying maybe they aren't that much of a cut above the rest of the players in the college game right now that could change the WNBA the way Caitlin Clark was a cut above when she was playing. Because again, Juju Watkins has been playing really well. Don't get me wrong. We'll run through some stats. However, we've talked about how she's been in absolute blowouts late in the game to padding stats, how she hasn't been shooting that well, which they've been talked on here. It's right here. If there's one knock on her, it's that her shot selection and field goal percentage could improve. It says that's nitpicking. I don't know if it's nitpicking. I think she has struggled a little bit with her shot. She doesn't seem to have the shot that everyone thought she had. But again, she's 2 on this list for a reason. She's one of the best players in the country. And then, of course, Hannah Hidalgo from Notre Dame. We know I did a video on her. Everyone enjoyed it. I thought that actually was one of I think maybe my best performing non-WNBA video. So that was kind of cool because I enjoyed doing that. Hannah seems like a really nice young lady. She's kind of got it together. She's got that energy that, say, a Caitlin Clark and I'll keep putting her in this too, because this is something I also think she's phenomenal at. And again, if Caitlin Clark brought that attention, and Aaliyah Boston is taking it to the next level because Aaliyah Boston is very personable. She's very good on camera. She just has that aura, that vibe, that charisma, whatever you want to call it. And I think she will do very well going forward with endorsements and any opportunities outside of basketball. I think Hannah shows a little bit of that in the interviews I've seen with her. She's obviously playing phenomenal basketball. Notre Dame has beaten both UConn with Bueckers and USC and Juju Watkins. They also have wins over Texas and North Carolina, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Hannah is popping 26 points a game, but also 4 steals a game, folks. 4 steals a game. She is rocking on the defensive end as well. Now, one thing I want to talk about with this list is there's no Olivia Miles, and there is Paige Bueckers at 4. So the 2 big changes that I would make to this list, I'd slightly change the numbers, but I would actually have Olivia Miles on the list, and my player coming off is Paige Bueckers. Yeah, I think I'm going to put her 6. Since we now have 6, I'm going to go Hannah Hidalgo, Lauren Betts, Olivia Miles, Juju Watkins at 4. Tania Lotson's going to stay at 5. And here are some of the reasons for that. I know a lot of people will say, like I think I saw in the beginning of this article, well, Olivia's not on there because she benefits from Hannah. But you can also say vice versa. But it also doesn't always work out that way. For example, the Indiana Fever, if there was no Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark might have averaged 25. She might have led the league in scoring. But of course, that could also mean that the team result might not have been as good when you take away someone like Kelsey Mitchell, right? But when you have a Caitlin Clark and a Kelsey Mitchell out there, and you got to throw in Aaliyah Boston, you're dividing things up the same way you do with Hannah and Olivia. Now, if they play really well together, you're going to get a better team result, but individually that could cut back on their stats. Now, look, let's go with Tania, since I still have her at 5. Phenomenal year if you look at her numbers. And what is really interesting is so far, there are big jumps up on everything. I mean, she's actually playing fewer minutes. That's the other thing I got to point out here. She's averaging 27.9 minutes a game, and she's averaging 27.9 points per game, folks. She is not even playing 30 minutes a game. She only takes 3 threes. She doesn't take a lot of threes, right? 20 shots a game, but she only takes 3 threes. But she's shooting 51% from the field, which is way up over the previous years where she shot 45 and 43. She's shooting 45% from 3, which is way up over the previous year at 27%. Her effective field goal percentage is 54.7 compared to 46 last year. Rebounds are up slightly. She's averaging 4.6 rebounds, 4.3 assists. She's also grabbing 2.7 steals. I mean, she is having an absolute phenomenal year. And one thing I want to get to in a minute, though, is why I still have her 5 and that hesitation, and also why Olivia's now on this list and why Hannah is so high, which also has to do with scheduling. Now, Lauren Betts, as I mentioned, phenomenal year. She's having 20 points, 10 rebounds, 61% from the field, getting 2.5 assists as a center, even 1.1 steals and 2.2 blocks. Playing really good basketball for sorry, I had Juju Watkins in my head. USC, UCLA. Oh man, there's a rivalry there. That's like saying you like Michigan and Ohio State. Sorry for the confusion. Don't come for me. So, number 1 team in the country. They beat South Carolina, and of course Juju Watkins, who is having a really good year with you again. Look, her scoring's down a little bit. I mean, not much. Look, going from 27 to 25. Other factors come into play. She's taken 4.5 fewer shots per game. Now she's not. It's interesting because we don't feel like, from what I've watched, that she's shooting great, and yet she is shooting better than she did as a freshman. Her effective field goal percentage way up, 51 to 45. So, and she's stuffing that stat sheet too: 6.1 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 2.5 steals, a couple blocks. So when you hear what seems like negativity towards someone like Juju or Paige, a lot of times it's putting into perspective, which unfortunately for players at times they have to deal with expectations and potential versus what they're doing. But that is what you're going to compare them to. I mean, anything I say negative about what Juju's doing has to be taken into the context of she's in the top 5 in all of college for player of the year, right? That makes sense. Same thing with Paige, who we have here, who is, again, averaging 20 points a game. She is very good with her shot selection, which is why one of the reasons I think she's such a good shooter percentage-wise. She doesn't force shots. I do think she relies on teammates a lot to get her shots off. But again, if you look at, say, compared to last year, scoring slightly down, but she's also shooting less. Total rebounds are down. Assists are slightly up, about the same. Steals about the same, not getting as many blocks. So Paige is not playing by any stretch bad basketball. Again, 6. If I have her 6 on the list for player of the year. But what I'm comparing that to is the player that everyone has talked about as the, without question, number 1 pick in the draft. Now, to be fair, some of these other players that we talked about aren't coming out this year. Right? Juju's not coming out. Hannah's not coming out. Olivia, however, is coming out. And let's look at the senior year she's having. On only 11 shots a game, she's averaging 17 points a game with a teammate that's averaging 26. She's got 7.1 assists per game. You can see that's consistent in the last 3 years: 7.4, 6.9, 7.1. She's a good defensive player in terms of getting her hands on the ball, creating turnovers, averaging over 1.5 assists per game. She also rebounds. Her last 3 years of rebounding: 5.7, 7.3, 6.8. She is just an all-around good player, and that is coming from your point guard. Shooting almost 56%, shooting over 47% from 3. And it's not like she takes 1 or 2. She's taking 4.9. She's basically taking 5 threes a game out of her 11 shots. So that makes her a overall threat. And of course, we have Hannah herself, who's having, again, the phenomenal year: 26 points, 4 steals. That blows my mind. And that is not some weird aberration. She averaged 4.6 last year. Her assists are down a little, but she plays with Olivia Miles as her point guard. So it's not really her job to get a lot of assists. She does shoot a lot, but she shoots very well. Another player, 45.7% from 3. Now, the one thing I wanted to point out, and one of the reasons I have, say, Tania Lotson still down at 5 on my list, And one of the reasons I brought in Olivia Miles when that list didn't have her on at all is when we look at stuff like this. Just roll through quick. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you have, for example, already they played number 4 USC and won. They lost to number 11 TCU. They lost to number 22 Utah, but then they beat number 5 Texas. They beat number 7 UConn. I think we had another one in here. Yeah, they beat number 19 North Carolina. Right? They have a game against number 13 Georgia Tech coming up. So their strength of schedule, they played a lot of good teams already. Whereas if you go to, say, Florida State, which is where Tania Lotson plays, and I look at this and I go back, and Florida State, they played Tennessee, who was 16 at the time and lost. And that's it. Now they will get into more of those games coming up. They've got 24 California coming up, 19 North Carolina coming up, 21 North Carolina State coming up, 13 Georgia Tech coming up, 14 Duke coming up, 3 Notre Dame coming up. So we will see what it is that Tania Lotson can do against players like that compared to what she's doing against players now, and if she's able to keep up that type of pace, because it does affect things. It's not to say that she's not a great player. If she continues to have that production and Florida State can take some wins against all those ranked teams I just mentioned, then you're going to say, hey, well, maybe Tania Lotson is the player of the year. But the women's game doesn't have the depth. It has it a lot more than, say, when Gino was winning his championships, but it doesn't have the depth of the men's game yet. So you do get impacted by strength of schedule more so than on the men's side, although you have it as well in college. But Florida State and Tania will get that opportunity to play those ranked teams, and she can make her statement and say, hey, you know what? I'm not producing like this just because we're not playing anybody. I'm just that good. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. So that's my list. Hannah Hidalgo, Lauren Betts, Olivia Miles, Juju Watkins, Tania Lotson, Paige Bueckers, top 6 for player of the year at this point in women's college basketball. Let me know your top 6 in the comments below. Why you think mine's wrong, even though it's right, but you can tell me it's wrong. That's cool too. But don't forget to like and subscribe as well if you're enjoying the content, and I will talk to you later.